Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me at all the places: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And it is the day before. The day before, it's a Seahawks Saturday, which means tomorrow is the official opening day, season opening day for the Seattle Seahawks versus the 49ers. And there's only one person that all of us want to hang out with before that, and that's Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. When he is not absolutely destroying beat writers, he is here to talk to us about Seahawks football. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm good, man. It's can't believe this is a Seahawks game tomorrow. Like, I've watched the other two games this week and still doesn't quite feel real yet. Like, my anxiety hasn't got high yet. I haven't had any stress. I've just been able to sit back and watch. I'm jealous of fans who are able to do that during Seahawks games. My mental health is okay. It's just once that starts tomorrow, once I see those guys, it's a whole different mode I haven't been in.
Yeah, I pretty distinctly remember when the season ended last year, I was kind of ready because I was like, okay, the off season, you can't really lose when you're talking about prospects for the draft or free agency. I mean, yes, you could have things go your way or not. And we had some of that this off season, but there's nothing like the exhilaration of a win, but also the devastation of a loss that comes during the regular season. So that all starts tomorrow, and like the Seahawks, I was talking to Mike McDonald yesterday. I was like, you kind of control everything up until now. After tomorrow, all the overreactions start. Like, it's really it's an emotional roller coaster, dude.
So, yeah, I was joking. I wish like this team didn't impact my mood as much as it did. Like, I put in a tweet last week, like a nice view of where our family was, and I'm like, oh, the last Sunday I can enjoy in peace before the mayhem starts. And yeah, I wish I was a little more sane and didn't let a football team dictate my mood of the entire week. If they win, like, I feel good basically until the next Sunday. If they lose, I'm pretty miserable. And maybe the kids will change my perspective, but my kid's so young, I don't know if he will at this point. But I don't know. I'm just I don't know if I'll ever change.
I hear you. I mean, let's start with kind of some news, and then we'll get into the game because I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this game at all. I'm eager to hear where your head's at on it. But Christian McCaffrey, that was the news of the day yesterday. And I'll admit, Jeff, when I saw that on Thursday he was listed as limited with a calf and everyone was freaking out, I was like, whatever, man. Like, he's fine. He's going to play. I get the trauma from 49ers fans, but he's probably fine. And then yesterday he starts warming up for practice. Okay, yeah, he's fine. And then he doesn't practice, but it's a walkthrough. So why doesn't he practice for a walkthrough? And then Kyle Shanahan says he's questionable. And then Christian McCaffrey says he's fine. He's going to play. What do you make of all this, man?
From what I understand, I think he pulled something in his calf and he was uncomfortable on Thursday. And they're being cautious with him. And they're trying to figure out if he can go on Sunday. And I heard Jeremy Fowler say this morning that he wants to play, but the team isn't sure they want to risk. And it wasn't a great look when McCaffrey came after and said, okay, I feel good, I'm going to play. And all those tweets surfaced that he said the exact same thing before week 1 last year, almost to the day.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't end up playing, and we know how that season went. So I got you kind of referenced this before. I saw David Lombardi, everyone's favorite reporter here, trying to say this was some sort of competitive advantage because now Seattle has to prepare for 2 scenarios. And he started using this word. It was just
obfuscation.
Yeah, like, that's preposterous. Like, if he's an actual reporter, there's no way he would ever say anything like that. He's just like an engagement farmer at this point. It's not a competitive advantage. They're trying to figure out if maybe they're most important. And I saw you put this out. The line dropped pretty significantly based on the health or the uncertainty of McCaffrey. And when I looked at the 49ers roster, when like the 53s were set, and I sent this around, and I think Evan went a little crazy with it, but this is definitely the least intimidating 49ers roster since probably 2018-ish was when before they got Bosa. That's really, they really jumped. They still have their top dudes, but they don't have the depth, and there's position weaknesses, and you pull one other guy out, it really takes away from their strength because they're so top heavy right now. And McCaffrey is just when he's going, their offense was as good as anything we've seen in the last couple of years. I remember a couple of years ago, me and you were getting all geared up for the Seahawks season, and we watched the 49ers, and for you guys, the 10 a.m. slot, I can't remember who they were playing. It was 23, and they just rolled the doors, and we're like, oh, we're screwed this year. Like, we have no chance. And it was that quick. This team, especially if you till out McCaffrey, who's already older, 29 years old, I think there are real questions whether he's going to play yesterday. I think the big question to me is, even if he does play, how effective is he going to be?
Mm-hmm.
That was what everyone's like, oh, he's back in practice. This is fine. I'm like, that's not really the question. The question is it going to hamper him if he plays? Because it's so important to what they do with the receiver questions. If he's not the same guy and they have to – Brian Robinson's a capable back, it changes their entire dynamic.
Yeah, you referenced the line and the tweet I put out there. This game opened as a 1.5 point 49ers favorites and then grew to 2.5, and it had been stable at 2.5 for a week, 2 weeks, something like that. Pretty much as soon as the news broke about McCaffrey, it dropped all the way to 1. So it's now moved closer to the Seahawks than what the opening line was at 1.5. So. And I'm just looking now. That's generally where it is. There's still a book out there that has it at 2.5, but most are between 1 and 1.5. And look, I'm curious, Jeff. One, what do you think is going to happen with McCaffrey? What's your gut? And two, how much do you think? Like, how much do you care?
My gut is that he plays. I'm a person in general that just expects the worst. I'm just trained to kind of think like that. So I don't tend to get super excited about things like that. And I just expect the opposite to happen. And I care quite a bit. As I said before, I think McCaffrey, him being healthy, is massive for this team to have a chance this year. They're a limited roster. They're not the same team. I've heard Grant talk on your shows. I've heard him talk on his shows. I've heard Matt Barrows talk about – Matt Barrows is one of the beat writers I really do respect. How they're destined to descend over the next few years, not ascend. And you see this guy, Lombardi, talking about how they're destined to become the Rams. And the credible guys on the beat are not saying that. So I think if you pull out any of those top guys, and you saw it last year when Bosa went out, and that even in that Seahawks game, the difference of the splits. You saw what happens when Fred Warner isn't out. You saw what happens when Trent Williams. I don't know if they've ever won a game. If I'm ranking like the fourth most important guy on the team, that's probably Purdy, but McCaffrey's right there. And they're not set up. They just don't have the depth. They have too many young players in important spots. I think it really matters, especially like Brian Robinson's not a weapon in the passing game. It changes a lot of things. He's never been that guy. He's a straight ahead runner. I think it really limits their ability to be that dominant offense. I think for them to win, they're going to need their offensive studs to take over the game, whether it's Kittle, McCaffrey, even Purdy. I think they need that to win the game.
Yeah, you kind of touched on a couple things that are worth reflecting on. So one is for this game, but the other part of this is the implications for the season. And I don't like. I think the wise reflection on this news is, yeah, I don't know that McCaffrey is going to be available for this whole season, and he might, like, if he gets injured, he might be out for a considerable amount of time. He might miss the rest of the season. Like, this isn't an injury that you have some minor thing happen from it. If it goes, it's going to go. And again, this gets back to, I mean, I don't want to beat the dead horse again, but the fact that they are the clear favorites for the division and almost nobody gives that any pause. And they won 6 games last year, and part of the reason they won 6 games is due to injuries, and those guys are still injury prone, and their other guys are old, and like, I just, whatever, like that part for me is bizarre, and it's going to be very annoying to watch people be like, yeah, like, who could have seen this coming? The 49ers were destined to win this division, and then just injuries like knocked them down. I'm like, have you watched the NFL? Like, what? This was predictable. So, other news before we get into the Seahawks game specifically, we saw the Chiefs play last night. Obviously, saw the Eagles play the night before, and those are the 2 Super Bowl teams. What did you think of the 2 Super Bowl teams that we've seen so far this season?
So my big takeaway is there's going to be a different Super Bowl champion this year. They both looked limited. They're still good, but they're a lot more limited in terms of what you thought they would be at this point. The Chiefs, especially, Xavier Worthy went out in the first play. Did you see what happened? Where Travis Kelce basically took him out by accident.
Uh-huh.
And then you take out Rashee Rice and Worthy. And what happened with the Chiefs offense last year is when you took it, they didn't have enough skill players, and their offense just wasn't particularly good enough. And they lost some depth on defense. And then you look at the Eagles, you took Jalen Carter out of the game, and without Josh Sweat and without Milton Williams, there's not really a lot of playmakers in their front anymore. And it was kind of just Jordan Davis and some pluggers, and Nolan Smith is a complimentary. He's kind of like what the Seahawks have.
Mm-hmm.
But when you looked at that front four, which is so good to what they do, they both looked limited. Chiefs in the skill positions, and then the Eagles went out and signed Zadarius Smith yesterday. I don't know what he has left, but I think they had the same reaction as me. So what made that team so good last year was their offensive and defensive line. And the Chiefs, they always kind of find a way, but they got exposed in the Super Bowl. And I don't think Josh Simmons had a particularly great game at left tackle. So I saw like Josh Cashman sent me like the in-game PFF grades. And I know even from preseason, those tend to change a ton the next day. But the Chargers looked like the more talented team last night. And the Cowboys, by all indications, should have won that game pretty comfortably had CeeDee Lamb just caught the ball. And Dak Prescott was the best player on the field, in my opinion, in that game. So obviously they're going to look a lot different with Jalen Carter and the domino effect. But those don't look like the powerhouse teams that you would have maybe thought. I'm curious to see the Bills and the Ravens tomorrow, but those teams look a lot more limited than last year.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the final PFF grades for that game yesterday. They're already up, and you're right. Josh Simmons, at least by their grade, 51, second worst grade on the team, and their right tackle, Juwan Taylor, 49.5, the worst grade.
Game.
So
gave up
both
a lot of pressures.
Both tackles struggled, and that was my impression, man, is that the Chargers looked like the better team, the more talented team, and I understand like Patrick Mahomes is an expensive player and you've got some expensive vets, but man, they should have moved on from Travis Kelce a while ago. I feel like they should have like moved money into, young players and try to invest in some skill, like any kind of skill stuff. And the fact that they've done this with Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, and now they're dealing with the consequences, like, I don't know, man. I feel like that Chiefs team is it's going to probably look stupid at the end of the season, but I actually don't even feel that way. I don't think there's much of a chance that they're going to be a Super Bowl team this year. I don't see it. They'd have to make some big moves.
Well, they weren't last year, and a lot of people said, well, they're going to fix their protection, they'll be fine. But if you watch them play last year, every game, even when they played bottom feeders last year, were close, and it was frustrated the hell out of everyone. And all these conspiracy theories came out because they kept winning, but they're not built to be when the Chiefs were the scariest, they were explosive and they had the best quarterback in the league. And they still probably do have the best quarterback in the league, which gives them a chance. But the way their roster's built, and especially with Rashee Rice's volatility, and Worthy is not a complete receiver, he's kind of a chess piece. You now got Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster and Kelce, who didn't have a catch until that like trick play that freed him up. There's just not much juice there. And I'm with you. Last year, I didn't think the Chiefs were going to make the Super Bowl, and they did, and they got killed. So I don't think they did much other than add the left tackle and to really fix what's wrong with them. I see them as a tier below some of the top teams.
Yeah, one other thing I'm pulling up here. So last year, 2024 draft. Let me pull this up. So, yeah. This is a little bit of a straw man, but Joe Alt goes number 5 to the Chargers.
Yeah.
The guy already looks like he's going to be like a Hall of Fame left tackle. Like he looks really good. He
switched from right tackle to left tackle because Rashawn Slater got hurt. And he had a shutout last night at left tackle. He was like, we talked about in this draft, there was no blue chip tackle prospects. Joe Alt is what that looks like.
Well, the reason I bring that up is there are 5 teams that passed on him, including the Arizona Cardinals. And they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. number 4. Now we'll see this season. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a good player. I don't know. Like if you switch that pick and they had Paris Johnson Jr. at left tackle and Joe Alt at right tackle, and they didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr., do you think the Cardinals would be better than they are now?
100%. And I think there's a case that they should have taken Malik Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors is a much
sure.
But if you could have got Joel, I think if they had to go back and do it again, 100%. Having a dominant tackle duo, and I think the Chargers, when Slater was healthy, had, outside of the Eagles, the best tackle duo in the league, best in the AFC. Now you pull out Slater, obviously a little bit differently, but the Cardinals, with Alt and Paris Johnson, 2 top 10 picks, it would be dominant. And Cardinals don't have a dominant part of their roster. They got a little bit of this here, a little bit of that there. Having a dominant tackles with their run game would have made them a really hard team to play against. I would 100%, even if Harrison hits his ceiling, a dominant left tackle is so much more valuable than a valuable receiver, in my opinion. I would take the tackle any day. And that was the decision. Everyone thought the Chargers were going to take Neighbors. And Jim Harbaugh came in and said, no, offensive linemen are the most important position outside of quarterback. And yeah, Arizona, I don't think it's a straw man. I think that was a mistake.
Did you read the article on the last thing I'll talk about before we get to the Seahawks, Caleb Williams?
So I did not get through it all. That writer, I actually know him pretty well. He used to cover the Bills, so we became friendly in those years. His site is paywalled, so I haven't been able to find a way. I'm not a member, but I've seen like screenshots. I heard a podcast talking about it. And when Tyler Dunn writes something, it's highly credible. He wrote that like Sean McDermott 9/11 story years ago. Like he wrote the Aaron Rodgers story. He used to work for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. And he's like now he moved into his own site. Apparently he's doing really, really well on this Go Long site. But the Caleb Williams stuff I saw in the clips, I want to read the whole thing. It was insanely explosive. And look, made the Bears, Brian Poles, Caleb, Shane Waldron, makes them look completely inept.
Yes.
And so it's a red flag, man.
Let me read a couple passages for people that didn't hear this about this story, but this is about Caleb Williams primarily. This is a point during the Seahawks versus Bears game last year where Thomas Brown was the coach at that point. And he said something he tried to explain something to Caleb Williams. Williams was not having it. As he had done many times to many coaches all seasons, Williams turned his head and walked away. Shane Waldron, before getting fired as offensive coordinator, used to stay quiet. Not surprised. Not Brown, not a stern, blunt, old school coach to believe this 22-year-old crossed the line of disrespect. The typically calm coach lost it on the headset. Another Bears assistant coach recalls Brown pressing the mic to finish the conversation. Get your ass back here right now. Don't bleeping walk away when I'm talking to you. Unfazed, Caleb Williams sashayed away right back to the huddle. The Bears lost 6-3. So that's just one passage. There was another passage I'm going to read in a second, Jeff, but why didn't you pull him? Like, how do you not pull the guy if he's going to be that insubordinate?
I'm guessing he should have been scared of the backlash he would have had to face, even though it was like,
he got fired anyway, man.
He got fired anyway. It's week 17. I'm guessing he just would have won. I don't know why, but he sounds like a problem. And then you have people in the front office just questioning the process of them making that pick. There are a lot of red flags there when you're disrespecting your head coach at the time like that, and you're walking away from people. And I would be very nervous reading this article.
All right, so a couple more passages, and then we'll move on. But this is pretty explosive stuff, man. Says when a play was sent in, Williams would stare at his wristband for a painful length of time, quote, like it was in another language, another coach says. Williams verbalized the call in the huddle. It was wrong half the time. And then players would be lined up wrong all over the field. They truncated verbiage. Huddling was minimized. The playbook was dumbed down. The Bears offense devolved into exercise of trial and error to fit whatever the USC rookie demanded. All of which would have been manageable if Williams was willing to work. He was not. For all the talk about wanting to do great, this new quarterback didn't seem to have the desire. When he wasn't storming away from a coach, he was telling veteran wide receivers how to run their routes before taking a rep himself. Man, in the meeting room, he barely said a word and didn't pay attention. Coaches often caught Williams on the wrong page of the game plan completely. He blew off film sessions and lifts. This guy, the Bears are going to be a freaking disaster if any of this is like, this is real, man. That's damning stuff.
Yeah, it is. And some of the fears with him was that he was kind of like a different kind of dude than a lot of people. He's kind of like a prototypical like kid of his generation who kind of does things his own way and freelances. And I know you were concerned, like even just like, can this guy run plays and structure? But if he's this kind of guy who's not listening to coaches and doesn't go through authority, I know there was like weird stuff with him before the draft where they were going to talk about whether he was going to demand a trade. And that story came out where his dad talked about all this kinds of stuff. It's got to be tough to read that. And then I saw clips today too, where the GM apparently was just trashing Drake May's tape during their team's evaluation process. And apparently they had JJ McCarthy over Jaden Daniels and Drake May on their board because they were so quick to discount those guys to boost up Caleb in the building. So it's like the whole building is just trouble. And I want to read the story before I start really forming an opinion on this. But like some of the stuff you saw with Caleb, and I know last year when like the coach got crushed, Matt Eberflus got crushed at the end of that Thanksgiving game where they couldn't run the basic 2-minute drill. My take, and I know like Josh Cashman and Evan, they got upset with me, but my take was that was basic stuff that he should have known, like when to use a timeout. They let the clock basically run out. Everyone's just hammering Matt Eberflus, and I was like, you guys are all kind of missing the obvious thing. And I know he was a rookie quarterback, but like, look how bad Pete Carroll was at managing the clock, and Russell all those years were masterful at those 2-minute drills. So people seem to overlook the Caleb side of it last year, and I've been wondering how his personality is going to fit with some of these more, especially a really hard-headed guy in Ben Johnson. I'm very curious to see how that relationship works moving forward. He's a tough coach. He's really hard on quarterbacks, and that thing could spiral fast. And now we're going to see Caleb play Brian Flores' defense to start the season. It's the most complicated defense, and God, this thing has so much explosive potential either way with the Chicago thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be something to watch for sure. I'll say this. A year ago at this time, Jeff, you remember where you and I were?
We were in Seattle.
We were in Seattle, and we were at
yeah, we were at the stadium
on First.
Yeah.
We did a show there, and day before that game against the Denver Broncos. Do you remember how you felt about that game at that time?
I don't remember how I would have felt about Denver.
Yeah, I almost went back and played our stuff, but I mean, I think generally speaking, we felt like there weren't a lot of real advantages for the Broncos, and that the Seahawks, we felt like we're in good position to win the game, and Bo Nix in his first game as a rookie and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that turned out to be well-founded.
Yeah.
But then the Seahawks also had two safeties and like their own, like they were tackled in their own end zone for safeties, had all sorts of mishaps and barely won that game. So with that in mind, where are you at on this game? Where do you feel like, let's do it this way. Where do you feel like the Seahawks have their biggest advantages?
I think the Seahawks' biggest advantages would be their ability to run the ball against a very thin defensive tackle group and a defensive line that has not played very much together. I think if the Seahawks can run block and they have the full offensive line out there, I think that's by far their number one advantage in the game. The tricky thing for me analyzing this game is like we really haven't seen the Seahawks defense play in the preseason. Like we haven't seen the defensive line, but I think the Seahawks interior pressure also has a good chance to take over the game. I think the 49ers are pretty weak at the guard spot. I think that's definitely a dominant part of the Seahawks defense. And when you see Leonard Williams, Murphy, and even DeMarcus Lawrence, I think their ability to stop the run is really big because if you would just make Brock Purdy do the obvious passes, I think that really plays into the Seahawks' strength. And Mike McDonald on third down last year was the best DVOA in the league, and he was the best at designing pressure. And I think to really maximize this McDonald defense, they got to get on third down. So I think running the ball and stopping the run is where Seattle probably stands out the best.
Yeah, I think I definitely am aligned with you on the Seahawks' biggest advantage to me is their offensive line against the 49ers defensive line, specifically the interior defensive line and the run game in particular. And so, and I would go this far, Jeff. I think that is the biggest single advantage in this game overall.
Yes, I agree.
Like Nick Bosa is great. Like no questions. Fred Warner's great. Do I think Nick Bosa is as big of an advantage versus Abe Lucas as I do the Seahawks offensive line is for run blocking against the 49ers defensive line? No, I don't think it is actually. Like I think I'll give Nick Bosa the advantage, but I don't think it's that big of an advantage. I look at on offense and I'm like, what are the 49ers' biggest advantages in this game? I think Brock Purdy is their biggest advantage.
Yeah.
Right? Like I in particular feel like I can imagine that the Seahawks playing good defense, covering, and him just scrambling around and creating stuff off script and, just being really frustrating to play against. I respect Brock Purdy. But like what else? First of all, it sounds like you agree. Is that their biggest advantage? Is there other places where you see the 49ers having a meaningful advantage?
Like I see like individual matchups they do, like Trent Williams against whoever's lining up on that side. George Kittle against the Seahawks linebackers. Always, that's a tough matchup. Kittle didn't play in that game last year in November, and I think he's really good. But Purdy's the kind of guy just because how he can get out wide and how he can extend plays, and he's very accurate and decisive. He was hard on, even in that 17-point game, he gave them a lot of trouble on third downs, and he made some pretty crazy plays to Juwan Jennings. And defensively, other than Nick Bosa just dominating Abe Lucas, which I'm not sure I see a scenario like that, I just don't really see a lot of advantages other than just how good Fred Warner is. I think position groups, I don't know if they're built to like tie up JSN and crush their passing game because they can win in different ways. And so I really just see it's individual players of Bosa and Kittle kind of becoming game wreckers essentially. And really that's how they would win because they have the best players in the game. But as position groups, I don't really see a lot.
Yeah, they struggled to run the ball last year in the second game. They ran all over the Seahawks in the first game, but I just don't think that first game is representative.
Yeah.
Just very, very different Seahawks defense that was going on back then. And I'll say this, the part of this game that I have the most concern about is not what I would have expected.
The defense.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the 49ers offense versus the Seahawks defense than I am about the Seahawks offense versus the 49ers defense.
Yeah, I mean, I get it because the glimpses we've seen in the preseason have been pretty mediocre, but we haven't really seen them. So that's where it's tricky. We haven't seen DeMarcus Lawrence yet. I think what he does to the run defense could really change their dynamic. We haven't really seen Leonard Williams yet. He's the best player on their team. And we haven't really seen them kind of work the whole thing, but the little glimpses we saw, especially in that Chiefs game, we talked about it in the show after. Didn't look great. So with Kyle's ability to scheme, and they have Kittle, and they have competent receivers now that Jennings back, Jennings and Pearsall's had a really good camp, it sounds like. And so if the Seahawks defense is just mediocre and not kind of where they were trending towards the end of the year, and they have struggled in run defense with their fits since they haven't really played together, it could become a challenge. But that's where, again, I'm stuck on that side of the ball because I really haven't seen them. Because Mike McDonald in year 2 in Baltimore just like exploded right from the get-go. And there was such a variance in what they looked like against good and not so good teams last year. I don't really know what I'm expecting there. I think it might take time, but I'm not really sure if they should just hit the ground running or we haven't really seen them.
Yeah, I'm looking back at Ricky Pearsall's game log from last year, and he had been coming alive before the second game against the Seahawks. He had 4 catches for 38 yards, and then the Tampa Bay game, he had 4 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown. Do you remember what he did against the Seahawks in that second matchup?
No, I can't remember him doing anything.
He was targeted. That's because he didn't. He was targeted twice. He had 0 catches.
Well, there we go. I remember
Juwan Jennings was the guy. I mean, he was 10
great.
catches and 11 targets for 91 yards. A lot of those came on third downs. A lot of those, like, I distinctly remember him catching a third and like 11 at like 7 yards and then dragging 3 or 4 Seahawks, another 4 yards for the first down, right? Like he's a legitimately tough matchup for them. But yeah, I would like to feel more confident about this offense or this defense. And for me, Jeff, it comes down to pass rush, getting home.
Yeah.
And first down. First down was the problem for this team last year, and it was often against the run. How are they going to look this year in those situations? And your point about DeMarcus Lawrence is spot on. I feel like this is what he was brought here for. I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's going to be our first glimpse of the defense. And again, this is when you hire Mike McDonald, this is supposed to be the personnel they've put in and the talent they have there. Everyone's assuming this is the core strength of the team. And our lasting memory of the preseason is the running game. And so we've kind of shifted there, but it's going to be cool to just see the glimpse of them because you've been at camp, but we haven't really seen them scheme differently. We haven't seen them call plays, and it's going to be really fascinating to watch them because there were games last year, the Buffalo game, the Green Bay game, where they kind of got punked. And this is a game right away where they're playing one of the best offensive minds in the league. They're mostly healthy, and we need to see the defense. And I'm calling the secondary out too. I want to see the secondary impact the game. There's too many games last year where guys are just running clean routes on them, and Witherspoon will make some tackles. But I want to see Witherspoon, Woolen, really Julian Love. I want to see those guys kind of really disrupt some Reds. I want to see them disrupt, not POAs. I mean, PBUs, get your hands on the ball. And that's where I get your point on the pass rush because when things got bad last year, they just weren't disrupting Jared Goff. They weren't disrupting Jordan Love. They weren't disrupting Josh Allen, which is hard to do. When Baltimore was defense, you saw what happened when Geno was there. People have great respect for Geno. He looked like he was seeing ghosts at that point. He had no idea what was going on. So this is a big – I don't know if it's going to build up over time, but this is what we need to see.
So there was other news on the Seahawks side yesterday. We had the injury report who's going to be out for this game. It turns out Jake Bobo's still out with a concussion. He's been out there at practice every day. I asked Mike McDonald, think that, they're hopeful that he'll be available next week, and he seemed to be hopeful that he would be. But also Derek Young is out with a hamstring injury. And then Uchenna Nwosu's out. And a couple quick notes there. So Uchenna Nwosu, I put out all the guys that were out, and people were like, oh, man, Uchenna's hurt again. I'm like, he's still coming back. He hasn't, nothing's changed. And in fact, Mike McDonald said he was ahead of schedule yesterday. And so Uchenna Nwosu's doing just fine. And I would maybe expect him next week, but I would mostly expect him week 3 is probably where I think he'll be back. But Jeff, Bobo and Derek Young, 2 receivers out, and they're both special teams players. So now we're waiting for 1:00 today for the practice squad call-ups. And I'm really curious. I've been assuming one of the practice squad call-ups was going to be like Quentin Bohanna, like a nose tackle. But now I'm also wondering, Courtney Jackson, wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner, what do they do there in their call-up? So any thoughts there? I mean, Cody White probably is steps up and is like the 4th receiver in this situation.
Yeah. So the good thing with Seattle is everyone's so used to them playing the 11 personnel they've been doing the last few years. It's not going to be like that this year. They're going to be a lot more 2 receiver sets. So the 4th receiver, more special teams related than anything else. I think there'll be situations that dictate and personnel groups that dictate the 11 personnel. But the 3 main receivers are going to be Kupp, JSN, and Horton. And Cody White will be active, I'm guessing, on game day for special teams. And he does things a little bit differently. He's a bigger receiver in the group. But for the most part, you're mostly just going to see JSN and Kupp, and you're going to see Oots, and you're going to see the fullbacks. I mean, the tight ends. And they have 3. They can go 4 deep at tight end. They might play all 4 of those guys tomorrow. And I would expect, my guess would be the call-up would be Courtney Jackson. the returner, because I guess Bobo was going to do some returning. Derek Young plays special teams. I think he's going to get bumped up to there because I don't know. Well, Ricky White was a dominant special teams player last year in UNLV. I think he led the nation in blocked punts, but we haven't heard much about his special teams play so far. So my guess would be the kick returner would be the more valuable. But I think normally, if you were a 3-receiver team, being down to 4 receivers and having those 2 guys out would be a real red flag. But for this team, which is more 2 receivers, more condensed formations, I think the tight ends are a bigger deal. I think the run game is a bigger deal.
Okay, so this is why we do this show, because we're obsessed with weird things. I'm going to go through a little bit of the practice squad because I think this is a little bit intriguing. So Tyrese Knight, we heard, also might be on a pitch count. That's a question mark. And so here's some guys that I think are potential call-ups. So Quentin Bohanna, nose tackle, or Brandon Peely. One of those as a nose tackle, I think, is a possibility. Yeah. Shaquille Griffin, cornerback. Like they could be planning to bring him up. I don't know. Like, would they really want Nehemiah Pritchett to be their backup? Maybe. I think they probably would be fine with that.
They have Kendrick too.
Yeah, they have Kendrick, right? Patrick O'Connell is on the practice squad. Do they bring him up to rotate with Tyrese Knight? That's a question. People say Chris Paul Jr. I know they're excited, but they're not. It would be Patty O if they're going to do that. And then the last name I'd bring up is, Jarek Reed. He was one of the best special teams players when he played. He wouldn't be being brought up to play on defense, but with 2 of their best special teams guys out, they might be making special teams a priority. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's possible Bohanna doesn't play and they end up just playing Byron Murphy and knows most of the game, and they still have enough defensive line depth where they can get through it. But I think with linebacker, they still have Surratt and Thomas on the roster. They would have to need him. I would think Jarek Reed might be more valuable than O'Connell in terms of special teams. But they still have 4 safeties on the roster. Okada is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Bell's on practice squad too now. I'm surprised they didn't take away from one of the offensive spots. But yeah, all of a sudden, I'm still thinking that the receiver's going to get bumped up, and I think the second one will probably be more special teams driven and potentially nose tackle.
Yeah, I am really curious who's returning punts, and it may be Torrey Horton, and I don't want it to be. And if it's not, it might. I'm really hoping Courtney Jackson gets called up, because that would do 2 things for me. 1, it would make me comfortable that Torrey Horton wasn't returning punts, and 2, I'd be really excited to see Courtney Jackson. I think he could be one of the better punt returners the Seahawks have had in recent years. So that would be the one I'm most hoping for. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if they don't call up Courtney Jackson, that they have Torrey Horton returning punts, and that Cody White is the backup punt returner. And we'll see. So that's one part that I'm like, we'll kind of see. So let's get into a little bit of like picks for this game. And we did this without you on Wednesday, and it just felt wrong. So we're going to take a couple seconds here and look at some of these picks on the Sleeper app. And let's just look at the Seahawks game for a second. All right. In this game, you got a bunch of options. Christian McCaffrey, touchdowns, Jackson Smith and Jigba yardage, Cooper Kupp yardage, George Kittle touchdowns, Ricky Pearsall yardage, Sam Darnold 206 yards. Are you over or under that passing?
I think I'm over. I think that's a pretty good bet.
Okay, so we'll take that. I really don't know. I could definitely see them having a lot more rushing yards than passing yards. Kenneth Walker 62 yards, Brock Purdy 240 yards, Juwan Jennings touchdown, Zach Charbonnet 32 yards, Jake Moody 6.5 points. Like, if they kick a lot of field goals, maybe. I'm
not betting on Jake Moody unless it's missed kicks.
I was kind of thinking about less, right? Yeah, maybe that's the right way. Torrey Horton 22.5 receiving yards. What are you doing there?
I don't know. If I'm going to go over on Darnold, I think I have to take that one.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Your boy Elijah Arroyo, is he going to have a touchdown?
Probably bet against that. First
Okay.
game of his career. I'd probably fade that pick.
Oh, this is an interesting one. DeMarcus Lawrence, 3.5 tackles.
I think I might take that.
Yeah, go over that.
Yeah.
I think so too. AJ Barner, touchdown. Julian Love, 2.5 assisted tackles. I think he's definitely going to have more than that.
That seems like a great bet.
Yeah. And
not betting on Reek Woolen tackles.
to be clear, these are picks, not bets. Yeah. But this is just daily fantasy stuff on the Sleeper app, and I think those are decent picks, man. So what I would say for folks that have not already checked out the Sleeper app, make sure you do. It's awesome. It's a great place to follow your fantasy football, get all your live updates about the NFL, and hang out with your squad. Like, there's real-time chat in there. If you use promo code Hawks, you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, dude. I see you checking out Sleeper on your phone. You can't hide from me. Morning slate tomorrow. Which games are you most looking forward to? Let's go around the NFL a little bit, because there's some interesting ones.
Well, the worst part is the games I kind of really want to watch are at the same time as the Seahawks game. The Lions and the Packers are playing, and the Rams and the Texans are playing.
Exactly.
Those are the games. So if I'm going a different way, the Raiders and the Patriots interest me. Obviously, I want to see Geno Smith and Pete and see how that looks. I want to see how their defense looks. And Drake May, I'm fascinated by Drake May. I got really interested in him in the process. And I did like Mike Vrabel as a coach during the coaching cycle a lot more than the rest of you guys. So I'm kind of invested in him, but I'm curious to see how that looks. The other one is the Bucs and the Falcons. I think that could be like a really fun shootout kind of game. And you guys have gone so hyped up about Michael Penix, and I'm curious to see how that looks. And I was a little more optimistic about the Bucs than you were, and they're missing a lot of guys tomorrow, and we're playing them in a couple of weeks. So I think that one jumps out. But the rest of the set is kind of crappy. The 10 a.m. set, like the Steelers and the Jets, I don't care about. We're playing.
You don't care about that at all? I mean, I'm going to be curious to see how that looks.
Yeah, I just hate watching Justin Fields. But DK and Rodgers, I probably should be more excited about that one, especially since we're playing them next week.
We're playing them next week. It's like, let's see what they look like. I mean, I think the best thing for the Seahawks would be if the Steelers go in there and well, probably best thing would be if it's like a close victory and they make a bunch of mistakes. But if they roll the Jets, which I think they probably will, let them come home being super confident. That might be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I see it a little differently with the morning slot. I mean, I think the Bucs Falcons game is pretty good. Like, I'm really interested in how that looks. And if the Falcons come out of that with a win, I think that changes a lot of people's perspectives, because I think everyone generally assumes the Bucs are the better team. I am certainly interested in the Raiders Patriots. Christian Gonzalez isn't going to play in that game, which is unfortunate, but I'm Geno Smith played in New England last year, had one of his better games last season in New England. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then the Cardinals against the Saints. I know the Cardinals are going to win that game, but Seahawks play both those teams. I'm kind of just curious to see what that looks like. I'm even like the Giants Commanders. I know that
the Giants might win that game.
Like, that defensive line is just so good, dude. And then I'll even throw in, I don't have a lot of interest in this, but the Panthers Jags.
I was going to say that. I thought you were going to make fun of me too much.
Well, we play both teams.
Yeah, I just want to see Ted McMillan. I want to see Travis Hunter. Brian Thomas was one of the most fun players in the league. I want to see if this like Liam Cohen offense transfers at all.
That's what I want to see. How does it look with him?
Because, like, look, that game is two teams that I don't think are contending at all, but I think they're going to be like those bad fun teams this year. And I am curious to watch that game. Like, Browns Bengals, nothing for me.
No. I draw the line.
Colts Dolphins is probably the worst game of the week in terms of like intrigue. Like, those are just two horribly uninteresting teams.
So what is your Sunday morning plan? You gonna hang out with Chase and watch some football?
Yeah, for the most part. It's just the hardest thing on the East Coast is waiting till 1:00. It's painfully tough. You guys have it so much better with 10, and
That's
you got to
so
get
nice.
somewhere, get to a bar. You got to be there for 9:00. You're done. I got to wait until 1 for the games to start, and the Seahawks games don't start till 4 for me. So every year, that's the hardest part of my day. Having Chase now is at least occupy my time. At least I'll just try to spend as much of it with him as possible. And so that'll be different, but I know I'm going to wake up early tomorrow. I'm going to be so excited. And it's just, I've always wanted to try, like some years I used to play golf in the morning just to kill that time.
Mm-hmm.
It is painful. I can't watch pregame shows anymore.
No.
They're so watered down and they're so bad. And when I was a kid, that was the best because we didn't have Twitter and we didn't have podcasts. And that's how I got all my information. But it's just going to be looking at my clock, and playing with my son will be nice. So I'll have a good 6 hours with him when I get up. But man, I used to love just getting up, playing golf, and then starting football 1. I would love to have your time zone. I'm so chuffed.
Yeah. And when I lived on the East Coast during college, that was rough. I know your pain, but you're so right about pregame shows. I have I can't even look at it's almost like a commercial. I can't watch it. I can't listen to it. It is so superficial. It has nothing of every once in a while they'll have a feature story on somebody that's interesting and they do a good job, but it's like a needle in a haystack to find that. So, I mean, I would watch NFL Live or ESPN stuff sometimes that their preview, but it's such a far cry from what it used to be where Chris Berman and Mark Jackson and right, that was just really good quality content. And now I feel like we get so much more information before, that gets so much deeper and so much more specific. I don't have much to gain from those shows.
That's it. I grew up, my favorite thing, and this probably explains a lot of me as a kid, my favorite thing was watching NFL Countdown with Chris Berman and Tom Jackson. You got you didn't have Twitter or the internet yet. So all the information came from Chris Mortensen, and he would give you those stories that you would never get. And now with Twitter, we know everything about every team every day. If you want to get deep, you can listen to fantasy podcasts and all this stuff. And now by the time these shows come on, the content is so watered down, and it's designed either for kids or people who don't follow that much. It's corny. Sometimes I see NFL Network clips come up, and it's Rich Eisen and what's her name, Christina Freeland, playing a game of spinning a wheel, and it's hard to watch as someone who grew up idolizing these shows. And I was never really one for the Fox NFL Countdown show. Those guys were just chuckling the whole time, and it's most of the same guys, but it's kind of sad. I loved those shows, and now it's just Teddy Bruschi and Rex Ryan. They're talking about, is this guy elite or something? It's find a good podcast, go for a walk. It's not.
That's the way. That's the way to do it now. All right, Jeff, a couple more questions and we'll let you get back to your family. So who are the guys that you're most looking forward to see tomorrow? Who are the guys that you're just, man, you're ready to see them wear a Seahawks uniform, or you're just ready to see how they play, maybe better or worse than they did a year ago? Who's top of that list for you?
Gray Zabel. I want to see if that transfers, but what we saw in the preseason. I just watching Joe Wald last night, seeing what a dominant lineman looked like, and seeing what Zabel looked like in the preseason. I'm so excited to see if that run game translates. And Ken Walker's another one. We haven't really seen him. And I saw Charbonnet in that preseason game, and the Hawk Blogger crew actually did a fantasy draft the other night, and I took a lot of crap when I drafted Zach Charbonnet pretty early. So Evan did not like that. And so I'm curious to see. We haven't seen Walker behind this kind of run game. We haven't ever really seen Walker behind an offensive line that looks pretty good. And if these guys block, and I'm going to add Abe Lucas. I'm excited to see Abe Lucas. He's going to be going up against Nick Bosa. He just got a new contract, which we didn't even talk about. He must have been happy about that one. But I want to see if Lucas and Zabel can become the staples on this offensive line. Because if you can have a couple just building blocks, and Zabel, Lucas as a rookie looked like the best lineman they had. And so if you can have 3 staple building blocks on your line, it changes everything. On defense, I've mentioned him before. I'm excited to see DeMarcus Lawrence. Mm-hmm. I thought he was a sneaky good addition. We haven't seen him in preseason. Even though he's older, he's not the pass rusher he was earlier in his career. He was a 92 graded run player. And even when the Seahawks played him a couple years ago, he just blew up the end of the game. And so That was not Draymond Jones. Draymond Jones more affected the pass game. To add him into this group already that has Murphy and has Williams, it has the linebacker play they have. I'm just excited to see what he does because I've never really seen him on it. He was a really good player. He's healthy. You saw what Clowney did when he kind of got put into this defense. I think this guy can be a really valuable player for them in this defense with so much talent around him. And Dallas is basically him and Parsons doing everything themselves. They didn't have, like, Dan Quinn did a really good job there, but they didn't have this kind of talent surrounding with this kind of brilliant mind. I'm so excited to see just what the defense looks in general, but he stands out to me.
You know, I think that this is a really good list. And as I kind of think about it, one thing that people have not, I don't think they've really internalized about how Mike McDonald has used Leonard Williams against the 49ers is they'll often put him over Trent Williams. I talked to Leonard about that this week, and him on one edge and DeMarcus Lawrence on the other edge is a very different kind of edge setting than what they had last year. It also potentially frees up Byron Murphy to play a little bit of 3-tech and, you know, maybe get matched up against Ben Barch and the center Brendel, who's a weak spot. So I am looking forward to that. I've said it before, like the thing that would get me most excited in this game, besides the offensive line and the run game, is the Byron Murphy. You know, if he looks like a player, like as a pass rusher or just disruptor in there, that would be huge. Who are the guys that you're bracing for, like maybe being problematic, or like you're like, ah, man, I don't know how this is going to go?
Well, obviously it's got to start with Anthony Bradford. I loved what I saw in the preseason. I said I was believing it, but obviously once the real game starts, I'm bracing myself for like a game where it's like, oh boy, we still don't have a right guard. Cooper Kupp, I'm not sure what he has left in the tank, and it varied. Last year when he was healthy, he looked really solid, but by the end of the year, he just kind of looked like a horse that was near the end. And so haven't really seen much from him. I haven't heard much from him. I feel like he's there for more off the field reasons than anything else. I think that's the most value he brings. So I wouldn't be surprised if we just see him and we're like, okay, Torrey Horton needs to be in there. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's really good. The other one, I'm always a little hesitant on Reek Woolen. I hope I'm wrong. It's his contract year. He's just so up and down. His variance is crazy. I hope he just comes out. Like last year, he came out and looked dominant in the first game against Denver. He had the pick, he had an amazing grade. The other one, okay, I'll take out Reek Woolen. Nicky Minwari is the one that kind of scares me. I think him against Shanahan in space. Yeah, I don't know what kind of role they'll have tomorrow. They might ease him in, but I think that's a spot they could really go after.
Yeah, I like Sam Darnold's on that list for me. Cooper Kupp's on that list for me. Nick's on that list. A little bit of Tyrese Knight, not because I think Tyrese Knight's bad or any of the guys are bad, but I'm just wondering how it's going to go in this first game. So those are the guys that kind of, you know, Josh Jobe a little bit, you know, still wondering
he's been exposed in some games.
Yeah, so those are the guys that for me I'm kind of curious about, but I am 100% looking forward to seeing this run game. And I think the most frustrating thing for me would be if they are unable to run the ball. This could be really rough, man. It could be really rough. So that's the, you know, I'm expecting that not to be the case. But that would be the single biggest thing that could change the fortunes of this game, because I don't think you're in a good spot to have to rely on, you know, Sam Darnold in the passing game in the first game of the season. Like, I don't think that's the best way to go. Yeah,
that's the game script. They're in trouble because I think what the run game does, it opens up their full offense. And you even saw the glimpse of it in that one drive, just being able to run the ball and staying on schedule. They're in very manageable plays where you can just throw the ball to Oots in the flat. You can throw the ball to JSN in the middle of the field. If they're in 3rd and 9s and they just don't have a lot of explosiveness, and they don't have a lot of guys who dictate coverage, so they can just zone them in and play tight. And with Fred Warner's ability to take off ground, yeah, that would get tough. For them to have a good game, they get to make it really easy on Darnold, I think.
All right, Jeff, we haven't heard your prediction yet. What's your prediction?
I hate predicting these games, especially the first one. I think the Seahawks do have the matchup advantages, and I think the 49ers' youth I think they're going to get better as the season goes on defensively, especially with Robert Saleh, who Robert Saleh has been historically a guy, he needs the talent to run his scheme, and they don't quite have the talent yet, in my opinion. So I think they're catching them at a good time, and I think Seattle's going to be able to run the ball, get enough big plays. I think their defense will impress us enough. I don't think they're going to look dominant. I think it's going to take a bit of time to get everyone playing together. But I'll say Seattle wins by 4 points.
Okay.
So 24-20.
Okay. All right. I can see that. Got a couple super chats, then we're going to get out of here. Chris Clark has gifted 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Bonde, who's been a member for 17 months, love seeing that, says CMC plays so we don't have to listen to excuses. He's fingers are crossed that CMC plays. It's kind of where I'm at, you know, like I'd like the 49ers to be at full strength and let's beat them while they're at their best. Andrew Timothy says, Brian and Jeff, I'm locked in for Seahawks Saturday. Can't wait for tomorrow. Go Hawks. Quick question. Do you think Zach Charbonnet could become running back 1? What do you think, Jeff?
I did say I drafted him in my fantasy league pretty high, so I definitely think he could. Walker is just, he's got health concerns. I loved how Charbonnet looked at the end of last year in that Arizona game, and I loved how he looked even when we saw him in the preseason. He just runs the plays as they're directed. He's got a little better vision, in my opinion, than Walker, and he's just really stable as a running back. He does his job really, really well. So if he's getting those like 5-6 yards of carry and not having those explosive, I'm okay with it. I think you can have a pretty good run game like that. I think you've got to start and see if Walker can be the guy in this scheme and hit it. I think that completely changes. And again, you got 2 backs. Like Alvin Kamara always had Mark Ingram, and Jahmyr Gibbs had David Montgomery, and it all worked really, really well. But I think I would start with Walker and see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, I would consider switching that. There's a deep pit in my stomach that's wondering, like, should Charbonnet be the starter? I know what I'm getting there. It's going to be, they need some reliability on offense, but Walker is just a more talented player. So I say maybe over time, but I think Walker should start as RB1.
We're going to find out a lot more tomorrow. Jeff, man, always great to hang out with you on Saturdays. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care. Talk to you later.